first way I'm going to talk about is diplomatic. France has a lot of diplomatic interest in the Americas and in the American Revolution and in these rebelling colonies because, as I mentioned, France wants to see England weakened. And this is a way for England to get weaker. So France is eager for these colonies to rebel, and France is eager for these colonies to become independent. Vergennes, who is Secretary of State, you could think of him in that kind of role for France, and he's very influential with King Louis XVI. He would love it if America would win the war against Great Britain. And he would love to provide aid for the American Revolution. But at the same time, since France has just lost the 7 Years' War and is also in great debt, he cannot afford to join a war that he doesn't know he's going to win. So Vergennes' strategy is to just kind of sit back and see how the Americans do and see how well their army operates and see how well they do against England on their own. And if it looks like they're going to win, then he says, then we'll jump in and we'll help them defeat England, and then we'll be able to take some of the spoils of the treaty. Vergennes also thinks that commercially America is very important because at the moment America can only trade with England. But if the colonies become free of England, then they will be able to trade with other countries. And France sees this as a wonderful way to get money back that it lost during the 7 Years' War if they're able to trade with American colonies. And so Vergennes also sees this as kind of a commercial investment that would pay off later. The second way that the French are interested in the American Revolution is very ideological. And of course, France is kind of the center of the Enlightenment in Europe during the 18th century. And many Enlightened ideals influenced the outbreak of the American Revolution. And we all know that Thomas Jefferson used John Locke's ideas in the Declaration of Independence. So the Enlightenment is influencing the American Revolution. And that contains really good ideals about liberty and government by people and having republics instead of monarchies, and it contains wonderful ideas about justice and equality and all of these wonderful things. But of course, in Europe, it's hard to test Enlightenment ideals and see if they can become realities, because most of Europe is under monarchical governments. They have strict aristocratic codes, and it's hard to put some of those Enlightenment ideals in place. But America, French people see, or many French people see, it's kind of a blank slate. It could be a new country. It looks like it wants to be a republic. It's basing some of its government ideas off of Enlightenment ideas. And so the French are very interested to see how is the Enlightenment going to work in North America. And as a lot of this more ideological interest builds up in France, the French are treated to many, many misconceptions about North America and think that these British colonies that are rebelling are much more glorious and successful than they really are. And this is partially because the newspapers that the French are reading are heavily influenced by Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. They also the newspapers are purposely printing very pro-American reports and kind of downplaying any anti-American reports about any losses that the American army suffers or problems like that. And then because the idea of America being the successful enlightened land is so popular, people start to write poems about it, and they start to write novels about it, and they start to present over and over again this idea of America as this wonderful republic of liberty where every man is equal and every man knows how to use a gun because they've been fighting bears since they were 2, and they are all hardy and they are all big and they all love independence and they love their country, or they use the French word a lot. They love their patrie, their homeland, so much that they will die in most gruesome ways if they have to in order to protect their patrie. And so this very ideological view of America becomes extremely popular amongst French readers in the early stages of the American Revolution. So that's kind of the second interest that the French have in the American colonies. And to illustrate that, I'm going to show one of my favorite pictures of all time. I call her the ship lady. But the title is really Coiffeur à l'indépendance ou les triomphes de la liberté. And this shows a woman, and obviously she's a very well-dressed woman. She's wealthy. She's wearing these beautiful pearls. She's wearing a beautiful dress. She's admiring herself in front of the vanity. But what is really exciting about her is that she has her hair arranged like the waves of the sea, and she's got a giant boat on her head. And this is wonderful. And people really did wear very thematic, enthusiastic hairstyles in 18th century France. This is maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much. And what she's commemorating is she's commemorating the victory of the Belle Poule, which is a French frigate which fought a British frigate and won. And the French ship was fighting the British ship because the French are kind of providing under the table aid to America. The French aren't ready to come out and declare themselves for America because they want to see if America can win the war. They're holding back. They don't want to get on the losing side. But at the same time, they are kind of underhandedly, very subtly trying to aid America in unofficial ways. And the fact that this woman is wearing the Victory of the Belle Poule as a hairstyle shows the extent to which support for the American cause penetrated culture in 18th century France. And this is one of many hairstyles. There are also like hairstyles in the style of a patriot, which is kind of like a giant beehive with a little mop cap on top. And there are hairstyles in the Boston style, which also involves lots of curls and ribbons and things like that. But it's called the Boston style to help to support the people in Boston when their port was closed.